Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Russell here, and recently the first ever crypto bill was debated in Canada's House of Commons, and just a few days later, for the first time ever, digital assets were mentioned inside of Canada's federal budget, albeit not in the most positive light. Now, this has major implications for anyone who's holding crypto long-term in Canada or is working or thinking of working in the industry. So in today's video, you're going to find out exactly what was inside of that bill and how it could affect you long term, along with the less than positive language used inside of the federal budget, and whether or not Canada is likely to ban crypto, and I'll provide you a window into the minds of the politicians who are making these extremely hefty decisions. But before we do, if you haven't already done so, make sure to subscribe to this channel, and you can also check out the link in the description where you can find my crypto focus channel. On this channel, I upload crypto things when they relate to Canada specifically, but on that channel, I cover things even if they don't relate to Canada. So if you're interested in crypto, you can check out that channel for more content. All right, let's start with the first ever crypto asset bill to be introduced into the Canadian House of Commons, and it was introduced by Michelle Rempel Garner, who's a Conservative member of Parliament. Now, let me show you what she has to say about the bill, and then we'll go into a little bit more detail.
Canada should be attracting billions of dollars of investment in the fast-growing crypto asset industry. However, we've seen Canada lose crypto asset talent, innovators, and businesses to other leading jurisdictions like the European Union and the United States. Canada should also be providing clear guidance to innovators in the community who are asking for clarity on measures to protect them as they work, given scandals like Quadriga CX. Right now, we're seeing government officials and politicians start to discuss and set policy related to crypto assets. At the same time, many officials and politicians aren't familiar with what crypto assets are or how they function. Rather than prescribing any particular policy, my bill creates a mechanism to formally engage the expertise of crypto asset talent in policy development. This effort is the first of its kind in Canada, and as I've said, is overdue. Crypto asset policy should focus on lowering barriers to entry in the sector while simultaneously protecting those working in the space, while minimizing the administrative burden and promoting innovation. These things will only happen if crypto asset innovators are driving policy and have a framework to encourage growth and investment. That's what we need to do to move forward, and today I'm calling upon the federal government to do so.
So you've heard her description of it, but let's take a closer look at the actual text of the bill so you can know exactly what's going on here. So here's the actual text of the bill, and it's to be referred to as Encouraging the Growth of the Crypto Asset Sector Act. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the details here, but here are the most important points here. The idea of this bill is to force the federal finance minister, right now that's Chrystia Freeland, in consultation with the persons referred to in Section 4, to develop a national framework to encourage the growth of the crypto asset sector. And they're saying that this framework must, among other things, focus on lowering barriers to entry in the crypto asset while at the same time protecting those who are working in the sector, minimizing the administrative burden. If we scroll down here, we can see that while developing this framework, it's not just going to be politicians coming up with their own opinions. They say that you have to consult these experts in the field, those who have demonstrated experience working in the crypto asset sector, and also importantly down here, those who are not employees under the Public Service Employment Act or employees of Crown corporations, essentially public corporations or government-owned corporations. Now, all this bill is doing is saying that within 3 years, the finance minister has to come up with a framework to say, hey, here's how we're going to handle these digital assets. And at that point, when that sort of framework is proposed, that doesn't mean it would automatically go into law. At that point, that framework would be debated, but this is more of a bill to say, hey, we need to get the ball rolling here. These days, it's pretty refreshing to see legislation that's not prescriptive saying, here's how you should handle the industry. It instead just says the finance minister of Canada should probably be talking to people who actually understand the industry to develop their own framework on how they should handle this going forward. But based on the recent Liberal budget that came out, it seems that the current government has other plans in mind. And we're going to get into that in just a second. But first, I want to talk about what Michelle Rempel Garner, the person who proposed this bill, what her largest fear is, and quite frankly, what mine is when it comes to the digital asset space. Let's listen in.
And what I worry about is that the crypto asset industry itself is starting to become a politically charged or politically polarized industry, as opposed to us taking a step back and saying, look, when we're talking about ways to diversify the Canadian economy, to attract talent, this is an industry that is already growing and changing. It's not going away. saying, how can we encourage growth while promoting safeguards? That, to me, is the right approach to take. It's almost like a phase zero approach. I certainly hope that the discussion doesn't get out of the gate and become overly polarized to the point where, as many innovators are worried about, that this becomes a detriment to Canada being a safe haven for growth.
And this fear isn't unwarranted. We're already seeing a huge division between crypto supporters and detractors, with the detractors saying, hey, it's an environmentally damaging Ponzi scheme, while the supporters at the same time are saying that it could solve all of the world's issues. The reality is it's somewhere in the middle. Now, I definitely lean on the more crypto positive side, but my main fear here is that the pros and cons won't be debated with insight from industry experts, and instead this will be sort of polarized and politicized, where liberals say they hate crypto and conservatives say they love crypto, without the actual merits of individual pros and cons being weighed. But I'm about to show you just how politically divided the digital asset debate is here in Canada right now, because they just had their first ever debate in the Canadian House of Commons. Now, I'm going to show you clips from each individual party showing you what their take is on the entire industry, and I think the results might surprise you. We're going to start with the party that seems to be most heavily opposed to the industry at large, and that is the Bloc Québécois. Let's listen in on exactly what narratives are weighing heavy on their minds.
Talked a lot about great opportunities provided by crypto assets. And the Toronto police have said that that cryptocurrencies are problematic because they lend themselves to criminal organizations' attempts at money laundering. That has been a fact. So my question is simple. Is that what the member for Calgary Nose Hill meant by good opportunities?
Regular currency can be used to conduct illegal opportunities or illegal activities as well, too. I think the challenge that the Toronto police has outlined in that example is that the framework that might be used to detect or prevent that in this emerging space is something that is worthy of discussion. And the federal government, as I've outlined in this bill, likely has a convening role in that regard. So rather than, what I worry about, Madam Speaker, is that the industry itself is becoming polarized, like as per that question. I would like to see the industry itself not be labeled bad or good, but that we talk about how we put a policy framework in place that both encourages growth and also safeguards those who are working in the space and those who are consumers.
So you can see there's a fair amount of pushback here from the Bloc Québécois, but this first response isn't even the most negative. Let's listen in on this next one, and quite frankly, this one gets me a little bit pissed off.
The International Monetary Fund, they ensure financial stability and economic stability. They say that crypto assets are intrinsically linked with other factors, and people are unable to fully understand the risks that deal with this sector, which is growing very quickly and mostly without any regulation. In fact, risks to financial stability from crypto could become systemic. That's what the IMF is saying. The Assistant Governor of the Bank of Canada, Ms. Baudry, said that Bitcoin is a speculation tool more than a method of payment. So that's the Bank of Canada expressing worry about these tools. So I wonder what the Bank of Canada would say about this bill, whether it addresses their concerns. And I suspect that it doesn't.
So I'm sure you can understand why this frustrates me a little bit. He points at the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, and the Bank of Canada, one of many central banks around the world, and says, well, they don't like cryptocurrency, they don't like digital assets, they're not recommending it, so why should we do anything here? But of course, major global financial institutions like the Bank of Canada and the International Monetary Fund wouldn't be pro-crypto because they're the ones who stand to lose the most power by providing an alternative, parallel financial system. Now, nobody's saying we want to eliminate fiat money, but I personally think that there's a lot of value in having a parallel financial track that people can opt into if they lose faith in the current monetary system that they're a part of, which they have no control over, in favor of a system that is verifiably incredibly neutral. So here, the Bloc Québécois are making their position super clear, but what about the NDP, the New Democratic Party? This is the most left-leaning party in Canada. Well, here's the response from Daniel Blakey, who is the NDP's finance critic, and I think his response will probably surprise you.
I think this is a really important discussion. Whether we would like it or not, whether people want to be boosters of the industry or critics of the industry, there's no doubt that that this industry is growing, that it's significant, and that it's beginning to play a significant role in a number of different financial affairs in a number of different ways. And I do think it makes sense to begin having conversations about how we can regulate that space in the public interest. So I appreciate some of the points that have been made about what I might call the aesthetic of the bill, the language that's chosen, and the way that it speaks about the industry. But I'm going to present a little bit of a different view, I think, in saying that I don't think we should let that get in the way of trying to continue the conversation that was just started by this bill already today. I think we've heard some really important concerns.
I was super impressed by this take from Daniel Blakey, who seems to be one of the most level-headed members of Parliament in the House of Commons. Now, his take is that there's pros and cons to crypto, but we should sort of look past the initial misgivings that some people might have with this bill in order to actually progress the conversation so that we can be able to legislate and regulate in appropriate ways at an appropriate time, right? Also in this speech, he talks about social media and how, well, we kind of were really slow to get to that and really to understand the impact it was going to have. And look how hard it is for us to rein it in sort of sustainable and positive ways now. He's saying, hey, we can at least start the conversation now so that we have clarity for businesses and so that we're not having to do this 10 years down the line when it's even harder to regulate. And I think that this is all that the crypto industry in Canada is asking for. Not a lack entirely of oversight, but more clarity from the institutions that regulate them so that they can continue to grow their businesses in ways that align with thoughtful compliance guidelines. Right now, there are so many institutions that these businesses need to interface with that are all giving them different mixed signals. And let me show you here, a Conservative member of Parliament from this very debate lists a number of the different organizations that are giving mixed signals to these different businesses that if we had a broader national framework might make this growth more sustainable. And finally, arguably the most important perspective here is from the Liberals, the government that's currently in power. Now, we heard from two different MPs in this debate, and they had quite varied response, but both of them agreed that there are undeniably benefits to this new technology, but that's where their opinions sort of split off, and we started to hear some criticisms here.
Closer to home, there's also evidence of use of crypto assets in illegal activity as well. Just last month, cryptocurrency was identified as enabling the illegal occupations and blockades here in Ottawa, Windsor, and Coutts. Digital currencies allowed protesters to receive global donations without any obstruction or regulation. The Freedom Convoy's own crypto token, was designed in such a way to make it difficult for our law enforcement to connect the individual donors to the actual funds. And this is an evolving problem.
So she brings up what you might have heard of here, the trucker convoy and how crypto assets were used to fund them. There's a whole other debate there that we can't get too deep into because this video would be an hour long. But she also brings up, along with some of the other politicians in this debate, their issue with the name of the bill, saying that including encouragement of growth makes it seem like they've already decided that this crypto is a good thing. But apart from the semantics of the bill, we get mixed signals here from the Liberals, some saying, hey, we should continue these conversations, and some sort of taking issue with some faults of crypto assets, which doesn't make entirely a lot of sense when you think about this bill, because all this is doing is creating a framework for people to actually learn more and then make their minds up later, not labeling it as good or bad. But the clearest way to get a true picture of what the Liberals think about digital assets is to look to the document they released just a few days ago, the federal budget. Now, for the first time ever, in my understanding, the Liberal government, the federal government, the ones in power, mentioned digital assets inside of their budget, the biggest document of the year that says how the government is going to spend their money. Let me show you exactly what they wrote down here. I want you to note the tone of these words and let me know if you think it's more leaning positive or more leaning negative. I've come to my conclusion But listen to this. They say that a safe and secure financial system is a cornerstone of our economy. However, the digitalization of money, assets, and financial services, which is transforming financial systems and challenging democratic institutions around the world, creates a number of challenges that need to be addressed. And that in the last several months, for example, there have been a number of high-profile examples where digital assets and cryptocurrencies have been used to avoid global sanctions and fund illegal activities. So you can see the way that the tone is starting to sway here, but here's what they're actually going to do. They want to include measures in this budget that will help maintain the integrity of the financial system, promoting fair competition and protecting both the finances of Canadians and our national security. And here are the main points right here, saying that Budget 2022 announces the government's intention to launch a financial sector legislative review focused on the digitalization of money and maintaining financial sector stability and security. The first phase of the review will be directed at digital currencies, including cryptocurrencies and stablecoins, and saying that they're going to spend $17.7 million over 5 years to lead this review, starting in 2022-2023. So you'll notice that the language here isn't saying, hey, we need to evaluate what potential pros and cons there are in this industry. No, it's taking the sort of the mindset that this industry could be a problem. We need to figure out how it could hurt us and how we can regulate that hurt away, citing many times that they need to maintain financial sector stability and security, essentially insinuating that this is causing a lot of harm to our financial security and stability within the Canadian system. This section of the Liberal budget frames crypto as an issue that needs to be solved instead of a potential opportunity to grow Canada's economy, grow the government's tax revenue, which you know they want to do, as well as stopping Canada's best and brightest from moving to other countries and jurisdictions that are more crypto-friendly. The bill proposed from the Conservatives doesn't come to any conclusions about whether crypto is good or bad. Instead, it just says, hey, regulators and politicians, likely a lot of them, don't have a good idea of this industry and the sort of nuanced pros and cons of the debate. So we want to put this bill forward that forces the finance minister to go out there and consult stakeholders, talk to experts, and then make your mind up, and also provides a little bit of a roadmap and a timeline for when this could actually happen. This education portion is so huge because when it does come time to appropriately legislate and regulate, the people who are making these decisions about the regulation and legislation actually are informed about the industry that they're legislating and regulating. Now, currently the Conservatives' bill has yet to pass through the House of Commons. It's currently in second reading. After it passes second reading, it actually goes to the Finance Committee, which I think would be a positive because that's when they can actually have different stakeholders coming in to let them know the pros and cons of actually passing this bill and forcing the finance minister to make this framework. And the same can be said about the Liberal budget because it hasn't become law yet either. This is just the document that says here's our plan, but they need to bring forward actual legislation, actual drafted wording before they can actually start this review to protect their financial security. I think you've likely picked up on a little bit of my bias throughout this video, but I'm curious what you think about it all. Obviously, there are a lot of opinions when it comes to this sector, so let me know down in the comment section. I read absolutely every single comment and reply to as many as I possibly can. And as a reminder, subscribe to this channel if you want more Canadian-focused news, but also if you're just interested in crypto worldwide, you can check out my second channel, and there's a link there in the description as well, so you can stay tuned for more content on that second channel. But with all of that said, thank you so much for watching, everybody. I really hope this video has helped you out at least a little bit, and I'll see you next time.